Good morning, everybody. This is Joe, and once again, we meet online for our Jing's Wondrous Lotus review. Today is October the 27th. Today is a very special day. I'm all here by myself. That's why it's special. It's very special because Brother Yoping is away in Africa. And Sister Debbie is away in the Philippines because of Typhoon Hualien's anniversary is coming up, 5-year anniversary. So she's away. And some of you might know, today is every year, annually, there is a celebration or the commemorative day for when the Bodhisattva Guan Yin was enlightened. So today is that day. And so traditionally for this day, it is also the day where here at Jing's Abode, we are going to have new bhikkhunis, or there are, I think this year there are six of us, 6 of our sisters who will now show the other form of a practitioner. So it's a very special day, and anywhere you walk around here at the abode, you're going to see family members of the 6 that will be taking a cultivation to the next level, and it's a very joyous day. So that is why I'm all alone here, because nobody has time to do this. And so I'm all alone here. But I'm not alone. I'm here with you all, so I'm not really feeling alone. So we're going to continue our review. And after this is done, I'm going to hurry over there to join the celebration. It's a very, every year I've been here, I participate in it. And every year it always brings such wonderful feeling and to help remind us how important it is to remember your vow, to continue, to see people progress, to see people really moving in terms of cultivation. And I think this is what joyous acceptance is all about, is to see other people learning and progressing or advancing far ahead of us, and we're still happy and joyous for them and for ourselves, because we know that one day we can do the same too. And that's what this chapter 18 is pretty much all about, but we're going to talk about that today. So first of all, let's talk about what we talked about last week. Now, last week we talked about the importance of passing on this Dharma. We know that for 2,500 years, the Buddha has been, the teaching has been passed on by all the Sangha, the community of the Sangha, or all the practitioners. And it's very important, because without people passing on this teaching, the teaching would literally be lost. It would be lost. As Master always tells us, the Dharma is all around us at all times. The Dharma doesn't go away. The Dharma always stays. The problem is, if no one passes on this Dharma and this knowledge and this wisdom, even if it's all around, no one would know it. And that is why it's very important. So we talked about that last week. We talked about how to do it. We talked about some of the important key aspects of how we can passing on the Dharma that were taught to us in chapter 17 and chapter 18. So that's what we talked about last week. And we once again talk about this very example. This particular segment from the sutra itself, we talked about this for 3 straight weeks. So the line says, the segment, the paragraph says, but the benefit that he gains do not match the benefits of the 50th person who hears just one verse of the Lotus Sutra and respond with joy. They are not equal to 100, 1,000, 1 part in 100,000, 10,000, a million. Indeed, it is beyond the power of calculation, simile, or parable to express the comparison. This particular segment, I believe we talked about last week also, and the week before that. and the week before that. We talked about this for 3 weeks. And we're going to talk about it today again. So why? I'm going to tell you. But just to show you what we talked about. On October 6th, we talked about this particular verse. We talked about this segment, trying to explain what it means. We talked about indirect and direct influence. We talked about if you help those people, okay, let's go back to this particular part. The benefit that you get, you know, this is comparing the benefit of someone who hears one verse compared to a person who had actually done a lot of giving and also helping someone else obtain the rank of arhat. Okay, so comparing these two people's merits, which one is more? And this particular verse says the benefit of this person that helping the 50th person who hears just one verse, this is more. Okay, so on October 6th, we talked about it's important because it's not just me helping all these people, but rather if I can help another person to understand the meanings, then that person can help even more people. And therefore the merit of me helping another to understand and also inspire them to do more, and that person even inspiring more, that influence is more in terms of all the seeds that could be born, that could be birthed from that point on, rather than me doing a direct influence, and that's only going to stop there. So on October 6th, we talked about direct and indirect influence. On October 13th, we talked about a different way to analyze this. We said that someone asked, but arhat is already at the very highest ladder of cultivation for a particular school. And so on October 13th, for the same segment from the sutra, I explained that it is because that the listener, the audience at the time, already have reached arhathood, and they're already high up there. And therefore, for the Buddha to tell them that you're already at the highest level of achievement, there's nowhere left for you to go, or there's nothing else left to do. For them, it would almost mean, oh, that means I graduated. But rather, the Buddha gave all the people in the audience who were about to reach or already obtain arhat, are going to tell them that instead of that being the highest, there are always more things to do. And telling them by comparing the merit of someone who has already gotten there versus more things that you can do, which is by passing on this Dharma more. Okay, so that was on the 13th. Last week, we come back to this very particular verse again. We come back to this very particular content for this particular chapter. And last week, we talked about how to pass on this Dharma. We talked about the importance of keeping this Dharma alive by always continuing this Dharma and passing it on. And I used the same example again, this particular example. And I shared that it is important, instead of sharing the story, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories about what a particular person did, versus if there is one sentence and phrase that the audience can remember, one key point that the audience can remember, that is more important than the abundance of material that you brought with you, but the audience received nothing. So I use the example of the book that was recently published in Beijing that detailed all the stories, or not all, but most, and well, not most, some or a portion of the stories that chronicle the process of the development of Tzu Chi Foundation and also Master Cheng. You could, in one sitting, and all the audience in front of you, you can share about 5 hours of the stories and accomplishments of Master Cheng. But it is in nowhere comparison to if you're able to let the audience at least walk away with one key point to remember. Because you can dump all the stories onto their head and they will walk away with feeling warm and really, really happy and inspired. But if you ask them, so what did you learn? They would tell you, I'm not quite sure what I learned. I just realized I was very happy listening to all the stories, but I'm not quite sure what was it that I really learned out of it. Or you can tell them something brief and they walk away with knowing something, one key point. So that's what we talked about last week. So 3 straight weeks, we talk about this particular, the comparison of merits. And we're going to talk about it again today because it's very important. So that's what we talked about for the past 3 weeks. And I just wanted to put it into perspective how every week the explanation of the same paragraph changes. And it's not so much that the previous week was wrong. It's just that there is a different insight every week. And let me share with you, it's not every week. It's actually every day. I think about this particular paragraph, and there will be something new that comes up in my mind that says, maybe this is a different way to explain. This is a different way to validate. This is a different way to see this particular paragraph. Okay, so that's what we've done in the past 3 weeks. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to talk about the past 3 chapters. Thanks to Master, because yesterday we finished the complete verses of chapter 18. So today, Master did almost a review, almost. Master talked about some of the parables that were used in chapter 2, chapter 3, etc. And chapter 4, okay. And then goes into chapter 16, 17, and 18, very briefly. But Master was trying to wrap up chapter 18. So then we're about to head into chapter 19. And so Master finished a little bit early today. And to the surprise of everybody, including Shifu, who, no one really, we all thought that when Master said, be more mindful, we thought that she was going to continue the next part. But she didn't. She calmly folded her iPad and calmly removed the microphone and stood up. And people rushed in and tried to do all the things, right? So we're all surprised. But today was a very, very good review. Okay, if there is a day that I think it's really important, it's the parts that leads up to the finishing moments of today that I wish everybody had an opportunity to listen to it or rewatch it, whatever the case might be. It's very special. So today we're going to be talking about chapter 16, the eternal lifespan of the Tathagata, and also chapter 17, the description of merits or the distinctive merits and virtues. And chapter 18, the merits of joyful acceptance and what do they mean. So the 3 chapters form a small group, a very small group. And in fact, chapter 19 also part of this group. But I'm going to share with you how they are tied in together. So we all know this. In Chinese, there's a saying that the faith and believing is the source of knowledge, of path, of righteous path, and is the mother of all merits and virtues. So in another word, merits and virtues begin with faith and believing. Without faith and believing, you wouldn't have merits and virtues. And guess what? Chapter 17, chapter 18, and chapter 19 all had merits and virtues in their names. So in order to begin leading into chapter 17, 18, or 19, what do you need to have? Absolutely, faith and believing. And guess what? That's exactly what you have in chapter 16. In chapter 16, at the very beginning of chapter 16, the Buddha repeated this phrase 3 times. You should believe the true words of Tathagata. Repeat this phrase 3 times. In another word, the Buddha understood that from this point on, all the things that we talked about before chapter 16. It was all about setting the grounds to let everybody understand that everyone can be the Buddha and everyone has a responsibility to pass the Dharma, to continue the Dharma. But from this point on, you need to believe the words, because faith and belief is even more important from this point on. And why? We're going to find out later, right? But you need to believe it. So at 16, Buddha laid the groundwork that faith and belief is very, very important. And we should all follow that. So 16 set the ground for faith and believing. Therefore, chapter 17 continues with merit and virtue. But chapter 17 started with something that, it ended with something that was, once again, beginning to compare the different merits. And the reason why I really believe, the reason why for the comparison for the merit and virtue isn't to tell us A is greater than B. That's not the point. I believe the point of comparing the virtue is to bring us focused on knowing what do we do next. Okay, so it's more like telling everybody that college is very important. But you tell this to people in high school. You tell this to people in junior high. You tell this people to the people in elementary school to let them know that they have a goal. But once you are past the college years, it's no longer applicable to tell them that college is important. So chapter 17 is the same thing. It leads us into knowing what is important next. Because none of us have already gotten there. None of us are already there. So whoever you are, whether you are in elementary or junior high or high school, you need to understand, or even in college, you need to understand that the college lives, that's where many things are shaped and formed. And that's very important. So same thing. Chapter 17 began, or it ended, with the comparison of two things. One, the merit of this group, and two, the merit of the other group, and which one is more important. It's not to say that the other ones aren't important. So when I say college is important, by no means am I saying that junior high school isn't important. I'm not saying that elementary school isn't important. And we always hear people saying, don't lose, don't fall behind at the starting line. So, grade schools are important, kindergartens are important. So when I say college is important, I am speaking specifically to this group of people with a particular objective in my mind. So that's not to discount all the things that were important beforehand, but that is to set an objective for everyone. So in chapter 17, it talks about, this is what it talks about. First group, those sentient beings who heard about the great length of Buddha's lifespan can awaken to even a single thought of acceptance will all obtain a measure of merit. Okay, hang on. Let's see. Okay, so that's the first group. Okay, the first group is talking about those people who believe even a single thought of willing acceptance about what the Buddha said, versus if there are sons and daughters for the sake of complete enlightenment, practice the 5 perfections. The first 5, giving, good conduct, perseverance, effort, meditation, with the exception of perfection of wisdom. They do this for a very long time. Their merit is not even the hundreds of thousands and 100,000 of a former person's merit. So it's right now comparing to the 6 parameters. If you have only done the first 5 without the last one, the merit is incomparable. It's very, very small comparing to someone who just believes. And what does that mean? Here it means it's very important. What is the importance of wisdom? It's very important because if you believe So the formal group is this: those people who hear about the eternal lifespan of the Tathagata, and they just believed. It's telling these people that, yes, you have done so much. Yes, you have learned so much. But right now, you need to believe. Believing what? The importance of passing this Dharma. You can think about all the things that you've done in giving, good conduct, perseverance, effort, meditation. You can do all these things, but all those things are done by yourself, for yourself, and yourself only. Yes, you're giving to other people, but have you remembered to inspire other people to give? You are following and upholding good conduct. You have good perseverance and effort, and you, at the times of turmoil, you can meditate to find the calmness within. But do you remember to pass these techniques, teachings, and all these efforts to other people? So for all the people that have done all these 5 things, it's very good. It's almost like you have completed all your previous education. But do you remember to pass all the things that you now understand and learn to other people, to share with other people, so that they can also understand, so that they can also practice these perfections? And that all started with faith. Believing that merit isn't, this is 50 kilo and this is 30 kilo, so 50 is more than 30. It's not like that. This is Buddha's way of directing everybody's attention to the importance of, now it's not just you who are doing all these things, but you have got to influence other people to do the same. So the previous 42 years of teaching is focused on how we can do the first 5 perfections. The last 7 years when the Buddha began the Lotus Sutra, not even the first few chapters. The first few chapters is not yet talking about this. But eventually, slowly, Buddha was talking more and more and more about the importance of not just you knowing this, but everyone else must know too. And that is what the Bodhisattva path is all about. You can know this, and that's wonderful. But it's even more important to let other people know and follow too. And that's called wisdom. That's why. If you only have the first 5 without the last wisdom, you can't do the passing on of the torch. Why? Because you don't know the best way to pass the perfection of giving, good conduct, perseverance, effort, meditation on to the next person. You would just be like, do what I do and you will understand. Well, guess what? The other people would just not understand. Because yeah, I'll do what you do, but I don't know the meaning of it. I'll follow the good conduct, and then I see a lot of people not following good conduct, and they all got what they wanted. So why should I follow what you say? You know, and all these things, perseverance, effort, and meditation, they all sound wonderful. But without wisdom, you wouldn't know how to pass this on to other people. That is why believing that our mission and responsibility isn't just about ourselves, but also about passing this on to other people. Now you need wisdom to pass that on. You need wisdom to determine and identify the various ways that we can pass this on to other people. That's the important key, okay? So chapter 18, merits of joyous acceptance. Once again, we're back to this very paragraph. Comparing for the 4th week, for the 4th straight week, we're talking about this comparison. The 50th person that hears and responded with joy versus someone who had giving, providing joy, and also providing material aid to hundreds and thousands and uncountable amount of sentient beings, and also helping them to reach arhathood. That person's merit is incomparable to the 50th person who hears just one verse. What does that mean? And this week, I have a different explanation. To some of you, it might sound to be the same, because they are really the same. But it's a different perspective to look into this. So this week I was thinking that look at all the things that Master Cheng had done in the past 53 years. Tzu Chi as a whole, with the help of everyone here sitting there, in the past 53 years, we have built houses, temporary housing, Da'ai village. We have built hospitals. We have built schools. We have done so many things. Giving. We have done all these things. Building, all these different things. Concrete, very substantial things that are out there in different parts. We're building all these things. But imagine, after 500 years, maybe after 1,000 years, the archaeologist will one day dig out, I don't know where we might be, but archaeologists might have to dig out from under the sand, and then they would see the schools that we built. They would see the hospitals that we built. And then they would dust it. And then they would see the logo. And they would see the lotus, the seed, the petal. And then they would see 2 characters on it. And for some archaeologists who understand the ancient language of Chinese, they would look at it and they say, oh, I know this. This is Ji Ci, because they don't know which way to read it from the right or from the left. I always have this problem. Do we read it from the right or do we read it from the left? Because it seems both are okay. So whether it's Ji Ci or Tzu Chi, 500 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years later, they will uncover this. And if no one passes on the teachings of Master, then it would just remain as a relic. It would just remain as a site where it's something that's an archaeology find. Same thing with the huge statues of the Buddha. We find them in Afghanistan. We find them in the caves, the huge, 100 meters tall. And if we do not, not even one verse of the teaching was passed, then all we would know is that that is a relic of a past civilization of humankind. That's all we would know. And we would not know what the Buddha stands for. So even if 500 years later, our schools are still functioning, our schools are still teaching kids, our hospitals are still saving lives, even if they're still functioning, and I don't know that, but if they are still functioning, but one verse or one idea or one core idea, core principle was not passed on to the future generation, then all that hospital would be is just a hospital. It's not a hospital that's infused with the teachings of Master. The Dharma lineage was not continued, then it would just be another building made of concrete, except it has a different type of logo, but it would just be a hospital. Which one is important? So that's what this paragraph is about. It's telling you that you could have done all these accomplishments, but if the idea of why we do this, if the core principles of how the idea of Master Cheng Yen separates this hospital from others, if that idea doesn't get passed on, then the merits of that hospital is gone. Because you can build 10 of these. It would just be like a factory churning out hospitals. But the idea will be lost. And that's the most important thing. Therefore, even if it's the 50th person who hears just one phrase and responded with joy and say, yeah, I like how that sounded. Yeah, I will get that. I will keep that in my mind. If that idea gets passed on, that merit is far more than all these hospitals combined, because that idea gets lived on in people's heart. And that could inspire to more things. And that will bring life and meaning to all these concrete buildings. That's the most important. So that's what these chapters have been talking about. Believe. Don't just look at the things that we've accomplished. They're important. Don't get me wrong, they're important. But more so, without the spiritual guidance on the inside, it would just be a form. Without that, so what's more important, the spiritual itself or the form? They're both important, but the form without the spirit guidance itself would just be empty shells. And that's what this comparison is all about. So once again, October 6th, we talk about the influence. It's the same thing as what I'm talking about right now. October 13th, we talked about directed to the audience. Talk to these people, letting them know what the objective is. Same thing as what I'm talking about now. It's very important because Buddha is about to enter nirvana. He's about to pass away. He knows that. He needs to make sure that everyone understands that the responsibility is to pass on the teaching. One key point to remember, yes, which one is more important? Passing on the Dharma. So how do we do that? It all comes back to passing on the Dharma. How? By learning it. That's what Master was talking about this past week. Listen to the Dharma. Listen to the teaching. Think. Don't just be a pipe that transfer water. It's going to go through and the pipe will have no water left in it. That would just be like chanting. You're all chanting, but after you chant, you're not sure what you're chanting. But rather, listen to what Master says and think, contemplate. Think about how you can apply that in your lives. Think about how that's associated with our lives so that we can make it matter, right? So living it, learning it, listening, learning, living. Now you live it, you learn it, you spread it, and you understand it even more, and then you are proving it. And most important of all, believing it. Because once you believe it, you will learn it, you will live it, and you will spread it, and you will understand it, and you will prove it, and then you'll believe it even more. That's all what these chapters have been talking about. And that's what we're going to talk about. So that's my sharing for today. And I'm going to very quickly, it's 7:30, so I'm going to take 5 minutes to go through the questions because I feel really bad not going through the questions. So the first question for today, the good bad seeds are planted in the 8th consciousness. Okay, so when conditions ripen, bad seeds arise. We do not react and just be mindful. It goes back to our 8th consciousness. Does the bad seed ever get removed from the 8th consciousness, or the bad seed will be outnumbered by the good seed? Very good. So you have a very basic understanding of what the 8 consciousnesses are supposed to do. So 1 through 6, they're all acting and reacting. Okay, they are actors and they are reactors, right? 7 is the one that differentiates. I like or I not like. And 8 is the one that's a storehouse. So all the seeds are planted in the 8th storehouse. That's correct. When the condition is right and the bad seed arises, yes, the seed, remember, the seed will grow into a tree. And remember, the tree will sometimes have fruits. So suppose the condition is ripe and bad seed arises. The most important thing that we can do is make sure that this seed does not beget more fruit, because if there's fruit, there's more seeds. So you're right. If we do not react, just be mindful. For example, somebody shout at you and you're angry. You're about to react, but you just calm down and you say, you know what? I am the one that is at fault, and therefore I apologize. And do not react to it and be mindful. It actually doesn't go into our 8th consciousness. Remember, if you think about this, the seed, once it grows, that seed ceases to exist. The idea of the seed is supposed to grow into a tree so that more seeds can grow. But if we don't let it grow, once it bursts and it becomes a plant, you chop it, you unroot it, and there's no more chance for the seed to come back to our 8th consciousness. And that is why the precepts are so important, because that will chop it in half and unroot it, so you completely remove the seed from the 8th consciousness. It removes it from the storehouse. But if you let it grow, if somebody shouts at you and your anger comes back and you shout it back, well, that is the same way of a seed grows, and then it begets more seeds because of the fruit. So that's the idea, okay? But at the same time, always remember to plant more good seeds. That's very important. Next question. Spiritual cultivation is about having broad and peaceful life and be able to help others. That's one way to look at it. That's one perspective. I really like listening to Master, yet I still feel very afflicted despite having compassion mind. The person that lived with me also had this mind sickness, depression. He's a free thinker and does not approve of me being active in volunteering work. How could I help myself and him? I think for whoever that wrote this question, first of all, I think your condition and your situation is in our prayer. We hope everyone indeed will be able to have a peaceful life and be able to help others. However, we all have our afflictions and we all have our momentary obstacles and hindrances that will stop us and challenges that will challenge us, okay? So how do we do this? I think it's all about what we talked about this week. It's not about the amount. It's not about how much, you know, I listen every day, 24 hours a day to Master's talk. But if you listen to it and you walk away with not much or nothing, that is nothing in compared to if you listen to 10 minutes and then you are able to extract something out of it. So in response to you, I would rather that you take on that one sentence, one phrase that you truly believe from Master's teaching, and then you do learning, living, spreading, understanding, proving, and believing. You do all these things on that one phrase. And that is how you can slowly progress without the fear of other people thinking you are completely glued to this thing, because you are just living by that one sentence. And that is very important, okay? So it's not about I am stuck to the monitor 24 hours a day listening and watching Master talk. It's about how you can learn it and live it, and also understanding and believing it, and also by proving it and understanding and really living it. That's the key, okay? So next question. I'm just an average person. I think we all are. A father, worker, husband with 2 kids and 2 dogs. Okay, so average. It's almost everything is average. You know, average 2 kids, that falls within average. 2 dogs, that falls within average. Even though I'm interested in Buddhist methods and teachings, they take most of my time, and it's impossible for me to practice hours every day. So I'd be very thankful if you could give me some advice on how I could practice Buddhism daily given my circumstances. Wonderful. Whatever I just said on the previous question applies to this question. It's not about the abundance that I sit here listen to 5 hours straight of talk that shows my dedication to learning. It's rather, can you even take one phrase and be able to learn it, to live it, and to prove it, to understand it, and to believe it? That's the key, okay? So what is that one sentence? And how do you learn it and live it? And how do you be able to understand it? Truthfully understand the meaning of it, and then proving that it's beneficial to you and living it, okay? So next question. We heard the story of Venerable Ananda was too sad over deviation of Dharma. So this is the story of the snowbird, or that story. Jump on the sky and cremate himself. Okay, so let me first tell you that for all the story that I heard, all the different remissions of this story, all the different times that Master talks about this story, it always just talks about Venerable Ananda was too sad and then decided to enter Nirvana. Okay, Master never, and the story that I heard, never, ever specifically said how. So here it says, jump up the sky and cremate himself. I never heard that. Okay, so I don't know how Ananda just jump up the sky and cremate himself. That's not the version of the story that I heard. And Master, when talk about the story, never talk about jump up the sky and cremate himself. And I went back to the different parts of the Chinese version of what Master talks, and it never talks about that. So what I'm trying to say is, that's not the point. The point is, Ananda, when he passed away, was 120 years old. I'm terribly over time now, but I'm going to finish this question because this question had been there for 2 weeks and I didn't answer. And I think I apologize. 3 weeks, I think. So the idea is that the point is Ananda was at the time 120 years old. So right now, if you look at us, if you're already 120 years old, you're not in very good condition. So for me, my belief is that for someone to be 120 years old and still living and remembering all the things that were taught, you know, back in 100 years ago, I can barely remember what happened last year or yesterday. Now, Ananda, he began a true disciple, you know, at a very young age, but he became the attendant of Buddha when he was 20. So that means when he began to recite, that was 100 years after, okay? It was 100 years before. So being 120 years old when he died, previous 100 years was all the time that he was reciting and serving the Buddha. So for someone to be able to remember something that happened 100 years, it was very difficult, okay? So I believe that Ananda, Venerable Ananda, was sustaining his physical form with his spiritual mind, meaning it's his willpower, his will and determination that's driving his body, his physical form, to continue to spread the Dharma because he believed that was the teaching from the Buddha, that was the responsibility that was left for him to do. So there's a phrase that people of different religion always says, if God put me here on this earth, there must be a reason. You know, after a disaster, after something, out of all the people, you know, this person was still alive. And not, you know, not everybody passed away, but this person was still alive. And the person would say, I'm only injured and God left me here on earth because there must be another mission for me or something. It's the very same idea that Ananda had the same thought, that Buddha at the end was talking about the very same thing that we talked about, the importance of passing on this Dharma, to continue the Dharma. That was what the Buddha was talking about. So for Ananda, that was his goal. That was his responsibility. So for him, that was what drives him, sustaining his physical body to continue to live. But when that will dried up, when that will when he thought that there was no need, because even he was here teaching and spreading the Dharma, no one believed him. When that will dried up, the physical form dried up as well. So I don't believe, and I don't know because I wasn't there, I don't know if Ananda really jumped up the sky and cremated himself. I just never heard of that part from the master. I never heard of it. And whenever master talked about the story, I went back to check. It wasn't talking about how Ananda actually perished. So let me set this record straight. Set this record straight. As far as I know, and I don't know very much, as far as I know, and as far as I can read from, and I was at present when master talked about these stories, none of it. She did not mention how Ananda, you know, killed himself or willed himself to death, but it's rather, it's an ideal that it's the spirit self that is holding up the life. And when that will dried up, there is no purpose. Therefore, life ceased to exist because there is no purpose anymore. Okay, so all the things beyond that, I'm not going to read because it's an idea that, no, it's not about breaking the first precept of no killing. Okay, so I apologize. I cannot go through the last two questions, but I'm already over by 10 minutes. My goodness. I apologize, and that's my sharing for today. Let's move on to the sharings from the centers. Thank you.
I think my move to Sri Petaling community is the best decision that I have ever made. In this new place, I get to know a lot of new volunteers and have the opportunity to become a vocal for English Simpasiang. The best part is I managed to convince both an Indonesian brother and sister to come for English Simpasiang. And due to this affinity, we become closer. They come regularly for the weekly sharing and even brought their family members along. The overwhelming response of the volunteers' attendance at Sri Petaling English Simpasiang is beyond my expectation. Initially, I'm quite hesitant to shoulder on the responsibility as the vocal, as I only knew a handful of volunteers at this new center. I'm worried that I could not get support that I needed to carry on. Secondly, I feel very comfortable with my old community brothers and sisters as we bonded very well, and I'm quite sad to leave my old community. What more, to start anew at Sri Petaling, which is really an unknown to me. However, all these negative thoughts of mine are proved to be just my worries only. Everyone I met at this new center welcomed me with warm hospitality, and that really gave me the courage to shoulder on this responsibility. The very first day I moved in, my neighbor, who is also a Tzu Chi volunteer, invited me to join the morning exercise session. She introduced me to all the community volunteers present, including the community He Qi leader, Sister Yi. Sister Yi is very supportive. She immediately promised that she will assist me to promote the English Simfa Xiang at Sri Petaling. Sis Yi had stayed in Jakarta before, and on top of that, we speak the same dialect. That really drew us closer. Brother Albert and Elsie both also openly support me for the English sharing session. Deep down in my heart, I made commitment that even though there are left only one volunteers, I will still come and open the center. Sister Itz also made an effort to introduce me to all the Shelley leaders and Sister Jenny from Entrepreneur Group. She encouraged them to convince their Shelley volunteers to come and show support. Because of the passion and enthusiasm from Sister Itz and Sister Jenny, I knew I cannot disappoint them and deprive our English-speaking volunteers the opportunity to listen to Dharma. True enough, with the joint effort from all community volunteers, the attendance really surpassed my expectation. I had to thank Sister Elsie, being the first focal at Sri Petaling, as she has planted the good seeds. I came at the right time and at the right place. Because of Sister Elsie's perseverance, Sri Petaling Center now become new cultivation ground for other aspiring English-speaking volunteers to learn and know about the Lotus Sutra. I also need to thank Sister Jenny, as she will approach all English-speaking volunteers in the Sri Petaling community and encourage them to join the sharing session. Without her help, I don't think we will have such a good turnout. To all the regular volunteers that supported me from day one until now, infinite gratefulness to you all. Without all of your support, I don't think I can make it. It is each and every one of your little effort that makes all this possible. 我们一起加油. Last but not least, I need to thank my old community volunteers that gave me continuous support when I was there. Your love and support already imprinted in my heart. Thanks to my mentor, Sister Peggy, who teach me how to turn Dharma wheel through the icing breakfast. 十轮转法轮. The breakfast come sharing session has benefited all of us. Thanks to Sister Lacey, who helped me to edit my script. Without her help, I don't think I will dare to share her life now. Once again, sincere thanks to all my Pei-U brother and sister. Without your guidance and support, I will not be what I am today. I promise I will not let your effort go to waste. Now we ask Sister Jenny to share.
Good morning. I am Jenny, and my Hao is Ningxiang. I believe Riani has said it all. Why is it there is such a big numbers of turnout in Sri Petaling? See, ready? Okay, can you hear? Hello. Hello. Oh, sorry. To explain, we are not not used to sharing. Okay. I guess my name is Jenny, and my other house Ming Xiang. Okay. Sister Rinani has said it all. You see, she has the courage and the motivation to start off in Sri Petaling. See, I'm really motivated by her being so new in Sri Petaling, and she had the courage and the bravery to start up restart the English in Fa Xiang. And for me, why I supported this is just like Brother Joe said this morning, believe. You have to believe. You believe in Shanglen's Dharma. And I believe also we have to create opportunity to listen to Dharma and to be able to share the Dharma. And I'm very blessed and thankful to the English group because you have created such a good session where you have it in English, because there are so many people out there who are saying that Tzu Chi is all in Mandarin, 只是讲华语，没讲英文。So I think this English in Fa Xiang is a very good opportunity for us to close the gap of those English speaking people. And throughout my activities in Tzu Chi, I do meet a lot of English speaking people, like those in the Thai Mama, Chinzepan, and Tribunus group. So I believe this is this Saturday session, the timing is also good because it's 7 to 8. So how I talk to the parents, I say, you can't bring your kids, you can bring yourself while they are still asleep. So you come at 7 o'clock, you listen to Dharma until 8, and you have a boarding session with good food. Then after that, you go back home, only your kids wake up. So what we are also motivated, have a couple here, we even bring their kids for the Dharma and for the good food. So this 十轮转法轮是真正的是在转。So it's a good listen to the Dharma. And in terms of English in Fa Xiang, while we're trying to get more people to listen, and for me, it's also my very first time to really sit down throughout the session since the first time we had it in, we restarted in Sripataling. And not only the others are benefiting, I myself also benefited from it, because I think they are sharing by our fellow brothers and sisters from all parts of the world. And the belief is when you're involved in it, you definitely will gain something from it. And that is what I mean. I actually gain a lot from this English in Fa Xiang. So every Saturday, I will come for the Chinese in Fa Xiang, hear it directly from Shanglen, and continue with the English in Fa Xiang. And I strongly encourage others to do it as well. Cảm ơn.
I would like to introduce our He Chi leader, Sister Yizi. Sister Yizi, please come. Sorry, Fu Ai leader. Sister Jenny just want to say hello to all of us. Okay, that's our sharing for today. 感恩。
感恩 Sister Riani and Sister Jenny for lots of heartfelt sharing of your wisdom. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for your presence today. Would Brother Joe like to comment on their sharing?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I really thankful for everybody sharing, especially thanks to, I think, Sister Yizi, who we just saw as the Hu Ai, and was able to help put everybody together. And special thanks to Sister Jenny, who gave us the sharing that indeed, just like what Master was talking about in the Lotus Sutra in this chapter, right? That it's you know, if you hear something that you think is beneficial, then you can also learn from it if you can, and then you can invite more people. Okay, so for some reason my video was stopped, and I think I can't start it. So it says the host stopped my video, but it's okay. All right, okay. Well, now it started again. Okay, so see, I haven't left. The idea that you can't see me, it doesn't mean that I'm not here. Okay, at least we get to hear each other. But anyway, so special thanks to Jenny who said that, you know, she began to invite more people. And I think it's not so much of what we do here on Saturday. It's more about to build that camaraderie, to friendship, and then together as a group we can learn more. Not just one person, but a group of people. And the perseverance of a collective group is greater and bigger, stronger than one person. So that's what Master wanted us to do also. It's not just one person. Imagine by being able to invite others, by being able to ask others to join. The idea isn't that, oh, let's all come and listen, but rather at the same time is to form a group that we can slowly learn from each other. And that's also part of what Master is trying to do with 和心和气互外协力. So that was the idea, that with the group of people, we are stronger. We have more wisdom, and we can do more things. So thanks to Sister Jenny for your sharing. Thanks to Sister Yizhi for helping put this together. And of course, Riani, you know, we go way back. We go way back to the beginning where it all got started. When we didn't know what we're doing, we didn't know what we're going to talk about every Saturday. And then all of a sudden, we decided to talk about the Lotus Sutra, and then now this happens. So thanks, Riani. And I remember back when you were, I think you said you moved recently. So wherever you were before, you were also the one that started this. And now you moved to a different community. And thanks to other people helping everybody putting it together, we now have something here at the local community. And I was so happy to see this group, you know, I'm sure just like every center, like a family, you know, 食轮转法轮. It's, you know, family all starts with eating, right? In Chinese, in traditional Asian family, it's all about sitting around the table doing what? You know, eating, right? So that's what family does. But except, you know, when we're eating, we don't just eat, and we don't eat, you know, we eat, you know, vegetarian, but we don't just do that, right? We talk about Dharma. We share Dharma. And as the wheel of the food is turning, then we're also turning the Dharma. And I think that's very important. That's wisdom. That's wisdom. It's not just about generosity and giving. It's not about the 5 perfection. That's wisdom, how we can turn the Dharma, but not so much focus on the food. I mean, it's important to have the food, but more important is to talk about the Dharma and to discuss. So once again, thanks so much. And I think the sharing today was very beautiful. It brought a lot of warm feelings to my mind, to my heart. And especially, like, once again, for today, it's a day where there are 6 of the sisters who will now become the bhikkhunis and the practitioners here at the abode. And these 6, most of them, we work with them for a long time, for 2 years, 3 years, somebody even 5 years, 6 years that I work with them, that I know them. And that has a very special meaning. And every time I see, you know, the actual ceremony when, you know, they say goodbyes to their family, because now they are going to take a different life, but not leaving family, but as a different way.